Harvey Schmidlap here. Actually, the Right Honorable Reverend Dr. Lord Harvey Q. Schmidlap IV. I'm really liking this video business. Initially, I thought, I wouldn't have anything worthwhile to talk about. But each time I make one of these, I think about 2 or 3 other things I'd like to discuss. I need you to stop walking around. Respect. That's what this is about. My children, well, let me back up. School shootings, people arguing with police officers on a traffic stop, shoplifters just brazenly walking out the door with stuff. This country, at least for the last 50 years, has been obsessed with familiarization. Getting away from I'm searching for the word, and it escapes me. Here's kind of where I'm going with this. I grew up a TWA brat. My dad worked for TWA. Consequently, we got to fly for free. I grew up in a house with 2 sisters and a brother. We all had a pass. This little green card. It was a pass, had my dad's name on it, had our name on it, my name on it was on mine. A little green plastic card like a driver's license. And on any given flight that TWA was having, if there was room on the plane, if they had unsold seats, we could ride. My dad required that my brother and I wear a suit and tie. He required that my sisters wear a dress. If my grandparents lived in Los Angeles, and I would fly out there twice a month, honestly, in high school. I would fly out twice a month to visit my grandparents. And oftentimes, I couldn't get a through flight from Kansas City to Los Angeles, but I could get a flight from Kansas City to St. Louis to San Francisco to Los Angeles. And periodically, I would get bumped, which means there wasn't room on a connecting flight. My dad made it quite clear to all of us, but especially to me, because I was the only one that got to keep my pass. I was flying so frequently. Hey, if you get bumped, don't make a scene. Don't make a scene at the ticket counter. Don't make a scene on the plane, because it will get back to me, and then I will get on to you. That was 40 years ago, 45 years ago. Everybody wore a suit and tie. Women all wore dresses, or most of them. Now you see these boobs wandering around in flip-flops and Bermuda shorts and tank tops. I think that's part of the reason this country is in such a mess. I took my children to church a month or so ago. Maybe Easter. I haven't been to church in quite a while. I won't discuss a lot of that. But I know it'd been years since I've been to church, and I noticed everyone. I didn't see anybody in a suit. I was the only one I noticed with a tie and a jacket. I went to military school. I had a uniform. I see my children going to school, and I dress them appropriately, but I see their classmates, and it's appalling. The way they speak, what they're wearing, how they treat each other. I was a teacher for a lot of years. Before I became licensed, I was a substitute teacher. I substituted everything from kindergarten to 12th grade. And it was so much different when I was in school. I know what that sounds like. I carried an air conditioner on my back and walked uphill to school both ways in 3 feet of snow. I know. But it was different. One of the ways it was so obviously different is when I was in school. Whenever there was a problem, according to my parents, it was always my fault. It was always the child's fault. The teacher was rarely wrong, if ever. Now it's just switched. The teacher is always wrong, and these poor little angels. I remember when I was teaching kindergarten, I had a little boy, and he clocked this kid right in the face, and it was terrible. And I had to call his mother. And the mother came to retrieve her child because it was school policy we'd send these little people home. She bent down and she asked this child of hers who had just punched a boy in the mouth, "What made you so angry, sweetheart, that you felt like you had to hit that boy in the face?" My mother couldn't have cared less what made me angry. I got news for you. My parents wouldn't have handled that like that at all. Speed up. I have required from my children since birth that they refer to me as Dad, Daddy, or Sir. And it's quite common for my children to say yes sir, no sir. Same for my wife, yes ma'am, no ma'am. And I can't tell you the scads of times that strangers and other folks would say, "Oh, you don't have to call me ma'am or sir." But I think that delineates our position. I'm not my children's friend. I'm their father. Their name isn't on my mortgages. Mine is. I don't ask them to make the car payment. I don't ask them to put food on my plate. I don't ask them to put clothes on my back. That's my job to do for them. That requires a given amount of respect. And I think, it's easy for someone to say, "Well, calling you sir doesn't automatically give you respect." No, it doesn't. You have to earn that. However, I think if the children are in the habit of referring to their parents or other adults as sir or ma'am, it delineates, it makes an observation of the clear line between child and adult. And I think it's important that you do that. We were in Michigan. Michigan's different than Missouri. We were living in Michigan. My wife's from Michigan. And we moved up there for 5 or 6 years. Missouri, where we live, has more of a southern flavor. Yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. It's not really, it's rather common here. And again, I attended a military school, so it was real common there, and my dad pretty much required it. But anyway, in Michigan, there's none of that. And I remember distinctly, I was in a store with my boy, and he was 5 or 6 at the time. And some lady asked my son a question, and he said, "No, ma'am." And she said, "Oh, you don't have to call me ma'am." And my boy looked at me, and then he looked back at this woman, and he said, "Oh, yes, I do." It tickles me even now. And corporal punishment is another biggie. I don't assert that anybody needs to beat their children. And there is an ocean of difference between discipline and corporal punishment. My children have required spanking since day one. They don't get them anymore. They're too old for it. There comes a time where you can use reasoning and logic. But when they're in their diapers and when they're toddlers, crack on the little rear end will get their attention right quick. And it is not abusive. Another time we were in a store, there was a parent and a child just going ape. And my daughter at the time looked at me and she's tugging on my shirt. I said, "What, baby?" And she said, "That boy needs a spanking." I think these things are important. It's my job as a parent to teach, I think my job as a parent is to feed, clothe, and house my children and to protect them. It is also equally important to teach them how to be productive, independent members of society and not become an inmate or a drain on society. My job is to teach them how to take care of themselves. And I don't think parents do that anymore. Nobody takes responsibility for anything. It's not my fault. It's not, it's not my fault. It's not the government's fault. That's got to be, you're the wrong gender, you're the wrong race, you're the wrong age, you're the wrong whatever. But it isn't your fault. Well, that's a load of nonsense. It is your fault. I don't think there's near enough respect. I think this whole idea of equity is ludicrous. We're all equal, and we're all not. We're all not. We're not the same. And life isn't fair. I tell my children, if life were fair, I'd be 6 foot tall with a full head of hair instead of really smart and good looking. Life isn't fair. But you need to take responsibility for yourself. You need to take responsibility for your children. And there needs to be a lot more respect. Just my 2 cents. It isn't worth half that. Thanks for listening, man. I'm having so much fun with this. Tschüss.